And so what function is used to lie, to manipulate someone good, bad, or indifferent to achieve your aims? Different than lying, but the same manipulative behavior. Um, well, I mean, the thing is this, that that question of character, like how you be, is going to be informed in a lot of different ways. When I was in high school, I had no qualms at all about lying to get out of things, get away with things, whatever. No qualms. Um, it's getting better already. Uh, it's loosening up already. It was very challenging sleeping last night because I had to be. It's like every time I turned over, I had to move my head and my shoulders at the same time, or it hurt. Um, so it's like, for me in high school, lying was something I did to any kind of authority figure sort of automatically. Um, and I didn't have any qualms about it. The answer to whether what causes somebody to lie is dependent on what kind of lie it is in part. So ENFJs, they tend to lie a lot when they're kids because they don't have very clear memories of what they've done because they're SI polar. As a consequence, they hear other kids saying, yesterday I went to Mia and then we went to Mia and we went to Mia, 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 and sharing time, right? ENFJs don't have those stories at their disposal. They can't do that. They don't have those detailed impressions of what's come before. And so they tend to make shit up and think, well, everybody must be making this up. And then they end up getting busted for lying a lot when they're kids. They learn to avoid being at least caught lying as they get older. But whether or not they're telling the truth when they're talking about their past experiences is hard to say. They've developed a repertoire of stories that they can bust out. Like I remember I was talking to an ENFJ named Parker. Parker. And Parker was a car salesman for a while. And he told me about how when people would come into the dealership, if they had, say, a sticker with dogs on their car, he would tell a story about how he had 4 dogs at home, blah, 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 blah. But what he wouldn't tell them was that was years ago and all those dogs are long dead. And he would just tell it as though it were happening now. For an ENFJ who's NIFE linking to these other people, it doesn't really matter what his story is because he's concerned only about the other person's perceptions and such. I have always been bad at lying. If I was in some context, it's like I wasn't bad at lying in high school to like authority figures, but in other contexts, I couldn't really lie. Because I never really believed in their legitimacy, the authorities and stuff, and the rules. I just didn't believe in the legitimacy of them, so I didn't think I had any obligation to say anything true at all. Like if I had to justify why I was truant, well, the reason I was truant is because I didn't want to go to school. So, but that's not a justification that they accept, so I just make some shit up. It doesn't matter, right? If they don't want me to lie, then don't have arbitrary and unjustified authority over me. My mother lies a lot, is completely unmalicious. I think it feels honest to her because the lie is usually intended to express her genuine emotional state, which she wants recognized. Well, I remember my ESFJ ex-wife used to, like, she'd frequently bolster things with extra shit, right? Like it'd be basically what happened, but there'd be some made up details in there, to make it work a little bit better as an NI thing, I guess. Because They don't have NI, so they don't have any respect for the truth fundamentally. They think that all language is about explaining one's experience, and that one's experience being sort of an arbitrary thing that you can position it how you want. The types who are most likely to grow at least into people who go, I will not lie unless I almost never lie and try never to lie, are probably INFJs and ENTPs and INTPs. I say all three of those types are going to be the types that are most averse to it eventually. Because ENTPs are the most disinterested in their calculus. And so they're gonna realize at a certain point that that honesty is a metaframe, that you have a choice to either make appeals to your own honesty and consistency about self-objectivity, or you don't get to make those arguments. If you're going to make those arguments, you have to actually, there have to be plenty of examples for you to point to. You have to get into the habit of earning that status, and taking advantage of it when necessary. Of course, it's like there are times when I need to say, well, look, maybe I can't establish to you that I'm telling the truth here definitively, but you should believe me because I have a long track record of being honest and admitting when I'm wrong, blah, blah, blah. So there are some certain times when I have to do that. I'm sure the lie detector would easily catch my lies and truths too. I'm a terrible poker player. I can't even begin to lie. I don't even try because I know it's all over my face. I think people shouldn't lie because by lying you are withdrawing necessary information to people you talk to, and I value transparency. Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, people operate under a basic good faith assumption that the communications of themselves and others are not willfully deceiving. If you can't operate under that assumption, then you can't make decisions based on what other people say, and you're stuck in this weird place of no trust. I mean, I used to make more of a distinction between circumstances and say that there's some circumstances in which lying's fine. But the thing that changed my opinion about that for me, and I'm not trying to generalize this, is I should have told the truth when I got arrested in Oklahoma for pot. I should have said, yeah, I have weed on me. Yeah, it's in this box. I should have just told them the truth. I shouldn't have lied. It didn't help. It didn't help at all, and I lost the moral high ground. So I learned something there, that just because if it's really an authority figure that's not justified in having their authority, and that you are I have the moral high ground, then do not give that up by lying. If you really did something wrong and you don't have the moral high ground regardless, then don't make it worse by lying. Unless, I mean, there are some circumstances in which the consequences are so significant or out of proportion with the actual harm done that it's appropriate to avoid those. And in those circumstances, maybe I would still lie, but hopefully I wouldn't get in that circumstance by doing something that I can't defend, but that the punishment for which is out of proportion. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that that's okay in that circumstance. Nympha Estrada, my point would be, why are you in that circumstance? Why don't you have an obligation to yourself to get out of that circumstance? I mean, who am I to talk? I was in an abusive relationship for 2.5 years, and it took me that long to get out of it. People lie every day, all the time, and they do this with the best intentions. It took me a long time to accept that even good people lie. Easy to forgive once you realize it's a defense. That's true. the more secure I've felt in life, it seems to have correlated with the more honest I've been. Whether it's a chicken and egg thing, it might be a chicken and egg thing. It might be they are mutually, like it's a positive feedback thing, like they're mutually enforcing something, reinforcing. But I mean, I've dealt with plenty of people who are what I would call bad people. Like Kimberly's aunt was one of them. There's sort of a string of them starting with Kimberly's aunt, who was clearly a narcissist, and he tried to pull her shit on me, and that didn't fly at all, obviously. The thing is, I'm not saying I wouldn't lie in those kind of circumstances, a hostage situation, but I suspect that you'd be better off not lying. That in most of the circumstances, you can use your honesty with anybody. You can't use dishonesty with anybody. Even if they're a hostage taker, if you're honest, if you can find a way to be honest and use that in your conversation with the party that you're dealing with, there's a strong universal appeal to fair dealing. Hey, you may be pointing this gun at me, holding me hostage, but I'm still telling you the truth, and it's not because you're pointing the gun at me. Like, it's something you can say to a hostage taker, and that might impact them a lot more than, well, either just and whatever, anything else you could say. So I'm not sure that for me anyway, that it would be a good idea to lie even in those circumstances. I think that I'd be giving inadequate credit to my expert intuition. It's like I can use the truth based on its inherent superiority, and I can use honesty based on its inherent superiority well enough that I don't need to lie. But I do sometimes. I mean, I'm saying I'm above lying. I've lied to my dad a couple of times, not in the distant past, and it's not justified. And I'm going to try not to do that again, Why not lie or tell misleading facts to save lives? Well, because then you can't use your superior moral high ground. That's the thing that people don't understand. It's like everything comes down to moral high ground eventually. When you're dealing with the personal experience of you and your interface with the world. How can I what kind of person can I present myself as? What kind of appeals to my past behavior and how I've responded to things, and what kind of demonstrations of habit of accountability can I make is significant in a lot of circumstances. In circumstances where it's a borderline thing, those kind of appeals can be the deciding factor.